Sylvia Brown named just 4 zodiac signs that could strike gold in 2026. Are you one of them? According to Sylvia Brown's vision, 2026 arrives like a crucible. It separates momentum from noise, trims what's been dragging you down, and hands opportunity to a very small, select group. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this could unfold for the 4 signs she singled out, month by month, with the kinds of chances, crossroads, and character shifts that turn possibility into real change. If you want to hear your sign's timeline, subscribe now so you don't miss the sign-by-sign breakdown. 2026 is being painted in images of ignition in structure. In Sylvia Brown's vision, not everyone gets the same sky. Some see lightning, some see steady rain that fattens the soil, and some find themselves called to build the scaffolding that will hold an empire. These prophecies are presented as possibilities, not guarantees. They point to openings and timings. The rest depends on choices, preparation, and the shape of the world around you. Aries, the breakthrough fire. Aries are initiators. You enter spaces when the air still trembles. You make the first move, and you are most alive where action is required. In Sylvia Brown's vision, Aries has carried a long season of scraping by, of small wins followed by abrupt setbacks. 2026 could be the year that pattern fractures. The image she offered was of a channel of flame suddenly finding oxygen. What was sputtering turns into a steady, powerful blaze. January through March, ignition and clearing. The year opens with sudden clarity. For many Aries, January arrives with a stark choice: continue fighting the same small battles, or step into a new position where you can hold influence. Sylvia's vision described a narrow window early in the year when an opportunity, a project, a job offer, a meeting of people who matter, presents itself. It might feel risky because it asks you to abandon what's familiar, a job, a partnership, a steady but stagnant rhythm. This is not an instruction to leap blindly. The prophetic image is of cutting away old frayed cords so the flame can breathe. Practical decisions made in these months set the trajectory for the rest of the year. April through June, the mid-year test in the first surge. As spring stretches into early summer, action turns public. Aries may find 1 or 2 initiatives suddenly gaining traction: a product that finds its first paying users, a freelance client that becomes a retainer, the viral moment that actually lasts past the first week. June comes with a pressure test. What looked like momentum will demand systems. Someone will ask, "How will this scale?" or "Who else is on the team?" Aries' impulse is to push harder, but Sylvia's vision suggests that the real move here is to decide which fires to nurse and which to let burn out. Partners may appear in June who either amplify or derail momentum. Choose with care. July-September, expansion and diversification. If the early gamble pays off, summer is when Aries could discover multiple income streams forming around a central idea. One Aries in the vision found that a side skill, a short course taught on weekend nights, became the seed of a larger membership offering. Another scenario showed Aries moving from solo hustle to leading a small team, converting energy into influence. The month-by-month beat here is clear: an initial burst, a scaling decision, and then a spread into several directions that reinforce one another. The flame becomes more controlled, less chaotic. October, December, delegation and influence. By late year, the successful Aries is not only earning, they're being asked to lead or advise. Sylvia's image was that of a spark becoming a torch passed to others, a role where influence matters as much as income. It's not necessarily about fame, but about authority. People look to you for guidance. Collaborations land with greater ease, and the work you do begins to shape a wider field. The conditional outcome she foresaw is that Aries could shift from survival mode into a rhythm of sustained influence if early-year risks were taken with thoughtfulness and if systems were layered under the initial rush. How it might happen? For Aries, the mechanism is decisive action paired with quick learning and selective delegation. A bold move in Q1 opens a doorway. The real test is whether you can build the next level structure so the chance doesn't burn out. The payoff image is a forge that produces not just single pieces, but a small line of wares, multiple, replicable sources of value. Practical takeaway? Act early and deliberately. Break ties that keep you small, but bring in partners or processes that let your energy be multiplied. Avoid burning bridges in panic. Instead, clear space for the new. If that sounds electric, hold on to it. The next sign's rhythm is almost opposite. In the contrast reveals what 2026 is asking of different temperaments. Taurus, the patient harvest. Taurus is steady. You till the field while others chase storms. Per Sylvia Browne's vision, Taurus's wealth story in 2026 is less about sudden surges and more about a season that ripens the long-sown seeds. The metaphor that kept returning was a plot of land finally yielding a crop, not overnight, but with a sense of vindication in steady increase. January through March, under the surface growth. The early months are deceptively quiet. While the world seems to move fast, Taurus experiences a deepening. Client lists thicken with repeat business, a side asset appreciates in small increments, or a relationship forms that will later open doors. This is the soil phase. Work done now won't always look dramatic, but it compacts into foundation. Sylvia's vision suggested that patience here would be rewarded. What is required is restraint from chasing shiny shortcuts. April, the decisive offer. April could be a pivotal month. Many Taurus individuals may receive a concrete offer, a partnership, a property opportunity, a stable purchase that requires careful appraisal. The prophetic image felt like a cart returning to the field with tools and a contract. The offer may not dazzle at first glance, but it's structured to grow. It's the type of arrangement that rewards steady work and the discipline to keep reinvesting. May, September. Expansion without panic. Spring into summer is when the harvest begins to show. Cash flow improves in a way that feels reliable rather than explosive. Rent rolls grow. Royalties trickle in and accumulate. A business model scales incrementally. Sylvia Browne's vision painted scenes of structural investments maturing. Not sudden riches, but a series of consequential moves that reframe a Taurus's baseline. The months between May and September favor methodical expansion, reinvesting profits into things that compound, such as property, systems to automate service delivery, or teams that carry routine functions, so the Taurus can focus on value creation. November, December, preservation and long-term moves. As the year ends, decisions tilt toward preservation. This may mean finalizing a property purchase, cementing a business partnership, or reorganizing assets to lock in gains. Sylvia Browne's vision emphasized that Taurus's strength is to avoid the panic sell impulses that snuff out growth. The payoff is a materially stronger foundation, a cushion that changes the meaning of security. The harvest isn't flashy, but it's often more durable because it's built on discipline and time-tested choices. How it might happen. For Taurus, wealth arrives through accumulation and careful selection of stable assets, partnerships that align with long-term values, investments that compound slowly, and a refusal to chase high-risk fads are the channels Sylvia saw. The visual payoff is a storehouse filling grain by grain, rather than a single dramatic chest of gold. Practical takeaway: trust the pace, protect gains, and be cautious of envy-driven moves. Your advantage is in preservation as much as growth. Let the harvest compound. These two signs illustrate two complementary strategies 2026 may reward. Aries is speed and boldness, and Taurus is patience and structure. What unites them in Sylvia Browne's image is timing. Each gets a season peculiar to their nature. Next up is the wild card, Aquarius, where ideas can become currency as quickly as sparks turn into lightning. Aquarius, the electric innovator. Aquarius thinks in systems that aren't yet visible to others. You see patterns and connections before they're obvious, and your instinct is to give the world new questions, not just answers people expect. Per Sylvia Browne's vision, Aquarius is standing before an electric season. Ideas that have lived in notebooks and group chats suddenly finding the infrastructure or the audience to catch fire.
The prophetic image was of a storm cloud building, not to destroy, but to energize a landscape thirsty for new currents. January-February, idea ignition and network signals. The year may begin with an incubation phase for Aquarius. What has been theoretical starts asking for a route to reality. Small, low-risk trials show promise, an online prototype, a pilot collaboration, an algorithmic tweak that improves performance. The vision showed acquaintances in unexpected places, sending messages with opportunity. Virtual introductions become the catalysts. For Aquarius, attention in these months is the currency. Networking isn't just small talk, it's the wiring that could let your idea scale. March through May, building first systems. If initial interest appears, March through May is about structuring the idea into something reproducible. Unlike Aries, who burns through action, Aquarius benefits from codifying the innovation, packaging your service into a repeatable offer, setting up basic automation, or collaborating with someone who knows distribution. Sylvia saw Aquarians investing in the scaffolding, simple but crucial tools that turn novelty into deliverable product. The difference between fascination and monetization lies in this period. Do you translate brilliance into usable form? At this point, a key test arises, one Sylvia hinted at without claiming certainty: the need for partnership. Aquarius can often be an original thinker who is less motivated by logistics. In the vision, those who invited complementary partners, someone with sales discipline, someone who managed operations, found their electric ideas encountering channels to move at scale. Those who held tight to a solo creator identity risked seeing the idea remain admired but not paid. June, the potential scale breakthrough. June was pictured as a hinge month. This is where an Aquarian project may reach a wider audience or secure a distribution contract that turns niche interest into significant scale. It might be an unexpected platform pickup, a tech incubator acceptance, or a licensing conversation that suddenly clarifies value. Sylvia's imagery for Aquarius in June had a literal flash of lightning, a singular event that alters perception. But she was clear that lightning without grounding can be beautiful and brief. The question is whether the strike finds soil. The narrative pauses here to follow the electric current where it leads and to trace the decisions that will determine whether the spark becomes a sustained source of value or remains an admired but ephemeral moment. June's flash for Aquarius is only the hinge, the point where possibility either finds purchase or fizzles into applause without follow-through. After that lightning strike, the months ahead ask for translation, for the slow, often invisible labor that turns a brilliant flash into a current that powers lives.
July-August, experimentation meets reality. As July arrives, Aquarius faces a critical choice: let the applause mark the summit, or treat it as a draft needing revision. In Sylvia Browne's vision, some Aquarians find themselves surrounded by sudden attention, press inquiries, inbound messages from investors, or invitations to speak on panels that were once only a dream. The test in midsummer is humility in scaling. Those who lean into experimentation, running controlled pilots, and listening to real user feedback are the ones likeliest to convert interest into structure. The vision showed scenes of late-night calls, messy whiteboards, and a handful of imperfect launches that reveal where the seams are. In practical terms, July and August could be weeks of scrapping assumptions. Which features actually solve problems? Which collaborations bring measurable reach rather than just flattering headlines? September-October, grounding the voltage. If the summer tinkering is honest, early fall is when grounding occurs. September may bring a first meaningful client or a revenue line that, while modest, proves the model. October acts as a stress test. Systems are pushed and the weakest links show up. Sylvia's imagery here was not of thunder, but of a conductor finding the right earthing, a partnership that routinizes distribution, a contract that clarifies expectations, or a mentor who helps translate eccentric brilliance into operations. For Aquarians, the key is translating the culture of newness into repeatable mechanics, simple onboarding flows, basic customer support, or a content cadence that keeps audiences returning. This is when the idea stops being a hobby and starts behaving like a product. November, recognition and the risk of complacency. November carries the reward symbol in Sylvia's vision, recognition that can look like a major feature, an industry nod, or a viral moment that turns into a sustained traffic corridor. Yet the caution attached to that award is sharp. Recognition without revenue converts admiration into a mirage. The prophetic picture suggested Aquarians beware of flattering offers that ask for too much control or too little clarity. A well-meaning platform could demand exclusivity, or a partner may promise distribution in exchange for diluting the core concept. The safer move, the vision intimidated, is to negotiate terms that preserve your ability to iterate and to seek partners who bring measurable channels, not just shiny logos. December, consolidation or fragmentation. By year-end, Aquarius can find one of two outcomes. In the more probable, careful scenario, the wire that once sparked now runs through a transformer. The idea has at least one reliable revenue path, a reliable distribution partner that understands how to scale it, and a small team or contractor network that keeps daily operations moving. The payoff image here was a city lit by a new grid, pockets of light joined into a network.
In the less fortunate scenario, the year closes with a beautiful prototype admired by many but paid by few. The electricity dies when attention wanes. Sylvia's vision emphasized that the difference will often be back-end discipline and humility to invite complementary skill sets into the project. How it might happen. For Aquarius, wealth arrives when novelty is matched with repeatability. The prophecy suggests the channel will often be intellectual property turned into accessible products, or platforms that aggregate niche communities and monetize attention. The mechanism is translation, turning brilliance into process and audience into customers through partners and packaging. Practical takeaway. Trust unconventional ideas, but translate them. Package what is original into something others can buy, use, or recommend. Seek collaborators who multiply distribution, and be cautious of deals that trade control for temporary spotlight. If your inclination is to hold everything close, consider whether that loyalty to independence is keeping your idea a private wonder instead of a public service. Stay with that current for a moment. The last sign structure will feel almost like a different season. Capricorn's pace is deliberate. Its rewards are architectural. The contrast matters because 2026, in Sylvia Browne's vision, favors both the spark and the scaffolding, the wild and the methodical, but not necessarily in equal measure for every person. Capricorn, the architect of systems. Capricorns think in blueprints. Where others chase the next headline, you draft the ledger that makes success repeatable. Per Sylvia Browne's vision, 2026 could be a year where your habit of planning,
Your appetite for the slow arithmetic of compounding and your capacity for disciplined execution converge into structural advantage. The image offered was of a dry foundation finally receiving a load-bearing column. Not sudden fireworks, but a practical insertion that changes what can be built on top. Personality snapshot in one sentence: methodical, ambitious, and endurance-driven. Capricorn converts efforts into infrastructure and values predictable long-term growth. January through March: quiet design and foundation work. The year opens for many Capricorns in a zone of quiet calculations. Sylvia's vision painted the early months as a planning silence, a season where the right moves are mostly preparatory and therefore invisible to outsiders. This could manifest as revising long-term plans, consolidating accounts, lining up crucial advisors, or quietly negotiating terms that will only be announced months later. Unlike signs that seek immediate validation, Capricorns benefit from patient groundwork, legal structures clarified, contracts tightened, and early-phase pilots stress-tested. The key is restraint from announcing too early. The work here is the kind that later looks inevitable because you took the time to blueprint correctly. April through July: bold structural moves. From spring into midsummer, the architecture shifts from drafting to construction. Sylvia's vision suggested Capricorns will see a bold structural move in these months, a partnership that embeds your brand into a new distribution channel, a systems overhaul that turns irregular income into recurring revenue, or a significant hire that fills a strategic gap. These moves are often not glamorous, but deeply consequential. A CFO who brings financial discipline, a scalable tech integration, or a licensing deal that standardizes a product for mass deployment. The prophetic picture was of cranes finding their place on a skyline. Progress is visible now, and it's substantial. August through September: operational stress and refinement. As the structure rises, operational stress will test assumptions. August and September often reveal friction points, unexpected costs, supply chain snags, or team dynamics that need careful management. Sylvia's imagery here was of scaffolding creaking under a new weight. The stress doesn't mean collapse, but it does demand attention. For Capricorns, the work in late summer is to iterate on operations, shore up contingency plans, and ensure governance mechanisms are in place. This could mean standard operating procedures, escalation ladders for customer care, or clearer contractual terms with partners. October: the stress test. October stands as a crucial month in the vision, a stress test that clarifies whether the structural decisions made earlier were resilient. A regulatory question might arise, a market downturn could pressure margins, or a high-profile client could request unreasonable concessions. Sylvia's prophetic scene here showed Capricorns in the middle of a technical inspection, blueprints spread on a table, while a small, trusted counsel weighs the options. Those who anticipated stress and built buffers find themselves able to negotiate from stability. Those who stretch too thin may be forced to retrench. The conditional message is clear. Discipline and planning matters because it allows for graceful adaptation under stress. November through December: consolidation and outward influence. If the stress test passes, late year becomes a time of consolidation and outward influence. Sylvia's image was of a completed floor opening to new tenants. Capricorns who established systems early find opportunities multiplying across adjacent industries. This might look like repeatable licensing models, white label arrangements, or executive advisory roles that leverage your systems expertise. The payoff is less a single payday and more a diversified, resilient income architecture, multiple channels that funnel into the same dependable engine. How it might happen? For Capricorn, wealth is the result of architectural thinking applied to opportunity. The prophecy points to systemization, turning one-off wins into replicable income streams through partnerships, disciplined governance, and slow, relentless compounding. The mechanism is leverage, your capacity to set rules and structures that others can operate within. Practical takeaway: Keep building, but don't expand before your systems can carry the load. Use discipline as leverage, not as armor that keeps you from taking calibrated risks. When a bold opportunity appears, ask whether your operations can sustain it. If not, design the necessary braces before you accept the weight. Warnings and guardrails for each sign. Sylvia Browne's vision is generous, but not naive. Across the 4 featured signs, the same temptations recur. Haste mistaken for courage, spotlight mistaken for stability, independence mistaken for self-sufficiency. The prophetic images did not promise immunity from error. They pointed to moments where common missteps could be avoided with prudence. For Aries, the hazard is misdirected speed. The very impulse that can ignite fortunes can also consume them if systems aren't in place. Sylvia suggested that some Aries might win early but lose later by failing to institutionalize success. The countermove is simple in concept. When momentum arrives, slow down long enough to name the processes that will keep it. For Taurus, the danger is complacency disguised as patience. Your advantage is steadiness, but Sylvia's vision warned that comfort with the status quo can prevent necessary reinvention. Hold on to what you've built, but periodically test whether your assets are still aligned with the future you want. For Aquarius, the risk lies in aesthetic isolation, nurturing an idea for its own sake and never connecting it to distribution. Novelty without reach remains an elegant hobby. The antidote is partnership. Find people who do what you don't and let them carry the pieces of the equation you cannot or will not. For Capricorn, the trap is rigidity. Structures reward discipline but punish inflexibility. The vision suggested that the most successful Capricorns will build guardrails that permit nimbleness. They design systems that allow for deliberate experiments. A deeper look at mechanisms, how these changes might materialize practically, without promises. Across the 4 signs, similar mechanisms were present in Sylvia Browne's reading: openings, partnerships, and decisive character work. Openings take many forms: a door swung by someone you once helped, a best-selling item catching a trend at the right moment, or unexpected access via a network introduction. Sylvia's prophetic scenarios often hinge on being in the right state to accept the opportunity, responsive, prepared, and capable of due diligence. Partnerships were a recurring motif. In the vision, the people who multiplied impact were rarely lone operators. They were connectors who brought distribution, credibility, or capital in ways that native talent did not. That was especially true for Aquarius and Capricorn, where the prophet scenes showed collaborative architectures producing the most durable advantages. Decisive character work is less tangible but no less critical: the ability to move when fear is present, to fail in public and learn, to negotiate with integrity, and to preserve focus when distractions proliferate. These traits, courage tempered by humility, boldness balanced by preparation, were what distinguished those who transformed opportunity from those who merely touched it. Month-by-month preparation guide for the 4 signs, narrative, not prescriptive. If you are one of the 4 featured signs and you want to orient toward possibility, consider a narrative roadmap for the year that mirrors the prophetic timing, a mental and practical alignment rather than a prescriptive formula. Aries, early year, prepare to choose, clarify what you will let go of and what you will double down on. Mid-year, test systems and invite partners. Late year, train successors and articulate your influence. Practice delegation now as an exercise in multiplying impact rather than a loss of control. Taurus, early year, nurture the under-the-surface work. Document recurring revenue and standardize processes. April, vet offers carefully for long-term fit. Mid-year, reinvest modest gains into assets that compound. Year-end, lock in preservation strategies. Cultivate patience as active work, small, consistent deposits rather than a single dramatic windfall. Aquarius, early year, prototype and invite feedback. Spring, build basic systems and seek distribution partners. June, capitalize on scale opportunities with clear terms. Summer through fall, iterate on operations until they're repeatable. Make a list of 2 or 3 people who can sell, operate, or scale your idea and begin conversations early. Capricorn, early year, plan quietly, tighten governance, revise contracts. Spring, undertake the major structural moves you've been preparing for. Late summer, respond to operational pressure with contingency plans. Year-end, consolidate and multiply influence. Treat the architecture like a living thing. Maintain it so it can support expansion. Mini hooks to keep watching. If any of this is landing with you, here's where to pay attention. Aries should watch the opening weeks of the year for invitations that demand courage. Taurus should monitor April for offers that reward restraint. Aquarius should watch June for a signal that turns curiosity into scale. Capricorn should treat October as a barometer of resilience. These are not guarantees, but they are the timing the vision highlighted as decisive.
Brief honorable mentions. While Sylvia Browne's vision centered on these 4 signs as the clearest recipients of wealth openings in 2026, other signs do appear in her broader reading with flashes of opportunity, moments that could still matter greatly to individuals. Gemini may find creative collaborations that alter a career trajectory. Leo could enjoy spotlight moments that translate into short-term gains. Pisces might experience spiritual clarity that leads to better decisions. Scorpio, Virgo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Cancer each have windows of relative advantage in certain months. Per the title and the prophecy's emphasis, however, the most structurally consequential financial arcs were the 4 we've focused on. Climax, turning prophecy into practical momentum. All prophecy, by nature, sketches possibilities. Sylvia Browne's vision, as retold here, offered images in months, not guarantees. The underlying message across the 4 signs is consistent. 2026 may present leverage points, moments when timing, temperament, and choice converge. Whether those moments become transformative depends on preparation, humility, and action aligned with character. Consider this a quiet, strategic invitation rather than a promise. If you are one of the 4 signs singled out, treat the months identified as opportunities to practice high-quality decision-making. That means doing simple things well, documenting revenue models, getting clear contractual terms, inviting partnership conversations early, delegating repetitive tasks, and protecting core energy so you can act decisively when openings arrive. In Sylvia's vision, the people who prospered were not lucky in an accidental sense. They were disciplined when the storm came and generous enough to bring others into the work. A word on risk and discretion. It matters to say plainly that predictions suggest possibilities, not certainties. None of what's described replaces prudent judgment. When offers arrive, when deals are tempting, or when a sudden surge appears, seek counsel. Read agreements, and consider the long-term implications. The prophecy nudges toward action, but action without scrutiny invites regret. Think of Sylvia Browne's imagery as a map of weather patterns rather than a guarantee of climate control. You still need shelter, clothing, and a plan if the storm shifts. Final practical checklist to carry into 2026. Narrative format. Carry these dispositions into the months ahead. Cultivate readiness. Your documents, contracts, and processes matter. Practice selective boldness. Take risks that your systems can sustain. Invite complementary skill sets. Partnerships convert brilliance into scale. And preserve optionality. Don't lock yourself into inflexible deals for temporary windfalls. Keep a small circle of trusted advisors or confidants who will tell you what you need to hear rather than what you want to hear.
And remember that the prophecy indirectly rewards not only action, but character. Those who meet opportunity with integrity often find the most durable rewards. Closing image and reflection. Sylvia Browne's vision described a year of contrasts, fire and soil, lightning and scaffolding. Those images are not magic words. They are invitations to see the terrain of 2026 differently. If you are Aries, imagine your spark finding a kiln that turns raw metal into tools that others use. If you are Taurus, picture your field finally tilled and yielding harvest after harvest. If you are Aquarius, see your lightning planted into conductors that light 1,000 homes. If you are Capricorn, envision a foundation that supports many floors of steady growth. Whatever your sign, the larger lesson is human. Opportunities arrive, but they require stewardship. The prophetic camera showed both sudden entranceways and long corridors. The ones who move from possibility to possession are those who steward the doorway and maintain the corridor. If this resonated, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear their sign's timing, and subscribe so you don't miss deeper breakdowns and timestamps linked in the description. There, you'll find a sign-by-sign index, minute markers for each month referenced, and links to resources if you want a more detailed, sign-specific guide. Sylvia Browne's vision points to potential. Your choices determine the story that follows. Hold that image of the year ahead, not guaranteed fortune, but clear invitations. Prepare, choose with courage and humility, and let 2026 be the year you build, harvest, electrify, or architect what you hope for.